and we're actually live streaming it on one of my Chinese partners. We're going to take the live stream and actually break the firewall and put it into the People's Republic of China so that they can see the speech tonight, which we try to do every time we speak to reinforce the virtues of free speech. Let's go back in time for a second. It is 5 o'clock in the evening on November 8th of 2016. That's when the mainstream media companies get the first exit polls. This is Donald Trump's 2016 election. The exit polls had us, I think, even in Ohio and Iowa, and losing everywhere else. And I was the guy that told candidate Trump 88 days before, when I stepped in and took over the campaign, that if you stuck to the populist nationalist program, if you focused on illegal immigration, mass illegal immigration to get our sovereignty back and protect our workers, our low-skilled workers, if you focused on legal immigration to protect our tech workers, if you focused on bringing jobs back from China, and if you focused on getting us out of these pointless foreign wars in the Middle East, those three legs of the stool, and you compare and contrast her, Hillary Clinton, for the corrupt and incompetent guardian of the globalist party of Davos. I don't care if you're 10 points behind or 12 points behind or 14 points behind and we have no money and she has $1 billion. It doesn't matter. That message will resonate with working class people and middle class people, and you will win. You will be the President of the United States. I said, forget all the polls. There's only two numbers that matter. Number one, 2/3, 1/3. 2/3 of the American people still thought we were on the wrong track. Right track, wrong track. They admired President Obama and his wife, but they did not think he was an agent of change that the country needed. But more importantly, the most important number was Pat Caddell, who just died a couple of weeks ago, who was the pollster for Jimmy Carter. Pat Caddell had been doing polling for 40 years, and for the first time in American history, working class people and middle class people believed America was in decline, and that our elites, our financial, our corporate, our cultural elites were comfortable with that, and that managed decline to unsuccessful outcomes to its citizen was the number one issue, and that America would back someone who came in and said, we will return America to her former glory. That's what the last 88 days were. On Billy Bush weekend, when everybody wanted him to quit, I said, double down. People don't care about the locker room talk. What they care about is their country, their kids, their grandchildren, their communities, their jobs. We're going to double down. We're going to triple down. So at 5 o'clock in the evening on November 8th, I wasn't looking so good. We called actually the candidate. He took it very well. He said, look, we left everything on the field. We could not have done anything else. Then as the evening progressed, 7 o'clock, polls started coming in, real votes. Things looked a little different in Florida, a little different in Ohio. But at 8 o'clock, the Detroit Free Press, one of the most respected newspapers in the country, been around for 150 years, declared that Michigan had gone for Hillary Clinton. They had never been wrong in their entire, I think, 150 years. I'd had us win in Michigan, so I knew we had a problem. But as the night progressed, we won Florida, we won Ohio, we won North Carolina. You could see in the counties coming in, particularly the counties we had focused on, of working class Democrats, low propensity voters, people that thought that the system had left them behind, started to come in, and we could see some momentum. We could see that we were very close in Wisconsin. We thought we were going to win Pennsylvania. But as it got to around midnight, the Detroit Free Press reversed and said it was too close to call. That's when I told Donald Trump he was going to be the next president of the United States. A couple hours later, AP, Associated Press, called it. They kind of waited to 2:30 in the morning, so we wouldn't exactly address the nation in prime time. The Fuse, by the way, the Detroit Free Press did not call the campaign for Donald Trump until, I think, November 25th, when we got the rest of the votes. The lesson is that even people that voted for Donald Trump were afraid to tell anybody. And the algorithms that the hinterland and the small villages and the outer suburbs and the small towns had come out in record numbers. The algorithms that for the big cities, the big cities coming first and then it triggers for the rest, it was wrong. The algorithm was wrong and people would not admit they voted for Trump. Why? Because of the demonization of the deplorables, right? What's a deplorable? Deplorable's a citizen, okay? Deplorable's a citizen. I go all over the world. I just got back from Japan. I went up in the island Hokkaido. There are deplorables there, right? There's deplorables in Arizona. There's deplorables in Ohio. There's deplorables in Switzerland and Italy and Germany and France and here in Norway. They're the little guy. It's the family I come from. My grandfather's a lineman for the phone company for 50 years. My father's a lineman for the phone company for 50 years. We're the most average family in the world. Just average working class people. The bomb that went off on November 8th, because remember when the polls came in, the mainstream media is high-fiving. They're getting ready for night. They were laughing it up. They couldn't believe it. Megyn Kelly's putting on her makeup. Not just is Donald Trump going to be humiliated because it looked like a 400-point electoral victory. Hillary's drinking champagne up there in the Peninsula Hotel. They've got that huge, remember that huge thing they had coming out, jutting out, that convention hall? They had 10,000 people. We had a cash bar for the VIPs. Nothing, right? I mean, nothing. We didn't have a victory speech. We kind of made it up on the spot. We knew we were going to win, but we didn't want to jinx ourselves. The fuse was lit 8 years before. September, I think it's 17th or 18th, 2008, Oval Office, head of the Federal Reserve, Secretary of the Treasury from Goldman Sachs, Hank Paulson, guy I used to work for. They walk in the Oval Office. Lehman Brothers had gone bankrupt in London on Monday morning, right? In a chain of events, smartest guys in the room didn't realize by letting Lehman go in bankruptcy, the whole system is going to collapse. They walk in and tell Bush, if we don't have $1 trillion by 5 o'clock, the American financial system is going to implode in 48 hours, the world financial system in 72 hours, and you will have global anarchy and chaos in 2 weeks. So President Bush, in a real profiling courage, said, it's not my job. You got to go to Capitol Hill. They're the only ones who can authorize that. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve at that moment was $880 billion. The balance sheet of the Federal Reserve when Donald Trump raised his hand on January 20th of 2017 was $4.5 trillion. The ECB, the Bank of England, the Bank of Tokyo, the Federal Reserve, all the central banks came up with a solution. We're going to bail out the wealthy, and we're going to bail it out on the shoulders of the common man. Remember, Obama's most progressive president in American history, because when you flood the zone with liquidity, you can bail out the big real estate holders, you can bail out the hedge funds, you can bail out the banks, you can bail out the investor class, you can bail out the donors, but there's a corollary to that. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Negative interest rates means a savings account has zero. A checking account has zero. That means if you're just some schmuck that has a job, right, and your little bit of money you're going to put away to save, you're a fool, because the system is not going to reward you. They're going to essentially, that's a tax. Also, you can't do a public bond offering. You can't do a public bond offering to fix the roofs of a school in the United States because there's not enough juice. They're only 1%, 1.5%. Nobody will buy it. The pension gap. We have a $9.5 trillion pension gap for working class people in the United States because of this. They never want to talk about that. They never want to talk about how they panicked. They didn't know how to handle deflation. The very people that had caused it, bailed themselves out at tax holders' expense, at the common man's expense. And they broke, 2,500, 3,000, 5,000 years of the underpinnings of the Judeo-Christian West, that the householder, the backbone of civic society, the family, you work hard, you save, you put a little bit away, you eventually can buy a house. It's generated, this is why people under 30, 75% of them want socialism or think socialism's cool, because they're nothing but Russian serfs in the 18th and 17th century. They don't own anything. They're not going to own anything. They're 30% behind where their parents are at the same time in life on income, family formation. Why we have a problem? Why we have a demographic problem? Why we have a family formation and people having kids? Every poll says the same thing, whether it's in the United States, Europe, or economic anxiety. You can't plan for your future. Uber just went public for $90 billion today? Was it today or yesterday, $90 billion? The gig economy personified, right? No pension, no stability, one gig to the next. That's globalization. That's the logical conclusion of globalization. The fuse was lit there. This populist revolt, the Tea Party, Brexit, all of it started with a financial crisis, and a financial crisis that we've kicked the can down the road. Yesterday, in a court in New York City, a young woman posing as a German heiress, she's a scam artist. She lived in these posh hotels and ran up a bill, and I think it was $200,000. She got 4 to 12 years in prison. What did the investment bankers get? What did the lawyers get? What did the accountants get? What did everybody associated with the financial collapse get? There were studies and reports and all the stuff that was done. There were 250 criminal referrals to the Justice Department. I think they got some real estate appraisers, some people in Miami and Las Vegas making $60,000 a year. I think they went to prison because they appraised working class people's houses for too much. By the way, the working class got blamed too, particularly the African Americans. Oh, we shouldn't have had them buy these houses. They're the ones at fault, not the ones who created the economic weapons of mass destruction that went off. Did you see those guys? Did Goldman Sachs return any fees? Did Goldman Sachs' partners return any of their bonuses? Did Goldman Sachs' partners give up any equity? No, you know what Goldman Sachs did? To save Goldman Sachs, on that Monday, the following Monday, they let him go in and sign a one-line piece of paper and made him a bank holding company. So they can borrow for 0 or less and lend it to their own clients for a couple of hundred basis points. So every year, just by cutting on the lights, they generate a couple of $1 billion in cash. Now, why do I go through this? Because that's the system that's been created. This system has destroyed working class and middle class people throughout the world and left them angry and full of angst. People say all the time, Bannon, why are you so angry? Why are these deplorables so angry? I said, because they're rational human beings, right? Right? Because it's also your pension funds and your savings and your retirement that's funding this. You know, Zuckerberg didn't have any money. That's pension fund money. All these high and mighty guys in Silicon Valley and all these hedge fund guys and these masters of the universe, not their money. It's your money. In the United States, that's where you go to Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Minnesota. You don't have to have some long, complicated dissertation like you do on Wall Street to get these people to understand about China. They understand where the factories went. J.D. Vance, the Marine Corps captain from Yale, the great sociologist of the Trump deplorables, wrote that book, Hillbilly Elegies. If you haven't read it, you ought to read it. He points to 2 studies done at MIT and Harvard. Those studies showed there's a direct correlation between the factories that went to China, the jobs that went with them, and the opioid crisis. Tariffs are not about tax. Tariffs are about human dignity, self-determination. It's about bringing manufacturing jobs back to the industrial democracies of the West, to move the supply chain back to Japan and North America and Europe. They had the same surprise on Brexit. Remember, we had Breitbart London. Nigel, God bless him, running the Brexit party day. Remember, on the evening of Brexit, Nigel conceded at 10 o'clock. I had to call him. I said, Nigel, no more beers, right? We got this. We're going to win this. I said, it's those Midland counties. I said, watch these labor voters. It was labor voters that voted for Brexit that put it over the top. Just like it's Democrats, Reagan Democrats, and working class Democrats that put Trump over the top. We won with a inside straight, to use a poker term, 75,000 votes in 5 counties. Now, she talks all the time that she won 2.8 million, 3 million. Hey, it's a difference in golf between match play and medal play. If we had to play medal play, we'd have gone to California's other states and beaten her on popular vote. It's not a popular vote. It's an electoral college vote. And she was too arrogant and too disdainful of really the backbone of the Democratic Party to go even have the common courtesy to talk to them. We went there every day. Remember, I think we were 3-1 in counties that had the highest combat death ratios. I think we outpolled them at the end 3-1 because we put the message where the people that needed to hear it and know that you've been dialed out forever, but now you're going to have a voice in the room, and that voice is going to be Donald Trump. Let's cut to the 3rd week of January 2017. There's 2 speeches given.